you? Who are you? Who are you? Hello and welcome to the Who Are You podcast with me, Deborah Bamford from Progressive Heads Global Limited. If you've often questioned who you are, and I suspect you will have at some point, or you will do in the future, then join me to explore who you are from a number of different perspectives. Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Who Are You podcast. Today, I want to explore with you the fact that I think we all have our own complete and unique reality. Now, the reason why I've called this podcast the Who Are You podcast is twofold. My mum, she's got Alzheimer's, and I help my dad care for my mum. One of her favourite sayings is, "Who are you?" Because she really has no clue. I've been that lovely lady for about 6 years. And even though I'm 52 and she gave birth to me, she has no clue of who I am, bless her. And she doesn't know a lot of people around her. So she does ask, "Who are you?" rather a lot. The second reason I've called this podcast the Who Are You podcast is because I want you to start to understand who you are from a number of different perspectives. Now, if I were to ask you the question, who are you? Then you would probably reply with a number of different labels. Now, the labels that you'll use will be labels that other people have given you and that you've taken on board, or labels that you've given yourself. And the reason that we give ourselves labels is because our brain likes patterns. They like the words. They like to match these patterns up to things about you. Now, we might have family labels like mom, dad, daughter, sister, brother, son. It might even be friend or grandparent, one of those labels. It may be a job title that you have as a label, that you're a marketeer, a copywriter, a quirky entrepreneur, because they're the people I work with the most. It could be that you're a coach or a therapist, and it might be that you're a networker, or you might be a property investor. There are lots of different labels that you might have for within your job title or within the job that you have, or business, of course. It could be that the label that you give yourself is a quality type of label, like kind, caring, that you're a night owl or an early bird. It might be that you're anxious or excited. It could be that you're depressed, angry. You might label yourself one of those neuro-spicy labels. It could be that you're quirky. It could be that you're a misfit, successful, a rebel, a rule breaker. It could be that you're sexy. It could be that you're awful. It could be that you're amazing and awesome and fantastic. Those are all qualities. Now, what we do, you see, is we attach meaning to the labels that we give ourselves. And this can either be really good for us, or it can be flipping awful. But the problem is, you see, is that what we do when we attach meaning, we think that we have that meaning. We think that we have that label forever. Well, if the label that you're giving yourself isn't working for you, well, why not change it? And this is why it's really simple to change a label that you've got. And I'm going to show you what an illusion we all living. And I'm going to just share my screen to explain that. I come from a background of NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and this is the NLP Model of Communication. Now, what it says here is that every single second, there are between 2 million and 11 million bits of information coming in towards us through our 5 senses. Things that we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we taste, and what we smell. So I want to reiterate this number between 2 million and 11 million bits of information per second. Now, I know there'll be loads of you out there now saying, oh, Debs, this just totally explains why I'm overwhelmed. I'm also here to say to you, overwhelmed might be a label that you're using if you're an overwhelmed person. And maybe the next bit of the explanation will help you understand that we're all left, once it's gone through the processing system inside our neurons and our neurotransmitters, then we're actually only left with 126 bits of information on the other side. And that is 126 bits of information once it's been filtered. Now, what happens is it goes through the filters by deleting, distorting, and generalizing all of those bits per second. So to get from 2 million to 11 million bits of information per second down to 126 bits per second once it's gone through all the filters, it's deleted a hell of a lot of information. Of that 126 bits that are per second that are left, it will have also distorted some of that information as well. So whatever meaning you're attaching to the label that you're giving you, that will be a distorted version of the reality. And I'll come on to that again in a moment. And we also generalize things as well. So we attach meanings of words to other meanings of words, as in a sentence or a paragraph, to make it mean something. So it generalizes the whole piece of information coming in through that second. Now, the filters that we have that it goes through are time, space, matter, and energy. We've all got our different versions of what time is. Some of you will like to be on time or early. Some of you will be late all the time or have complete and utter time blindness. There's also space, and that's not just to do with outer space or in space. This is also to do with your own personal space and how you fill space. So I usually explain this by saying, you know, if you're driving along in a car and there's a close gap that you want to get through with your car, then you kind of fill the car up with your personal energy to get through the space and to know whether you can or you can't get through that space. Those people that kind of make it by a hair's breadth, they really know how good their space is, have a really great awareness of what their space is. Some people who the space is way wider than the car and they still edge through really slowly thinking that they're going to hit, and there's at least a meter on either side. They've really got a lack of awareness of what their space is. I'm not going to explain any more on this. There's matter and there's energy, and there's lots of information out there on that. It will also go through a language filter, and this is not just about the verbal language that we speak, although that part of this filter is if you speak multiple languages, 2 or more languages, then it will also filter into the language that somebody's speaking in that very moment in time that you can hear. This is also about the tone that people use within their voice, and also it massively refers to the non-verbal communication that people utilize. That information will go through our past memories, so we will relate. And I'm not just talking of an event that happened in your childhood. I'm talking of the fact that I've just said, I'm talking of the fact, and you will relate that to another sentence of a memory where you've heard, I'm talking of the fact, to understand what I'm talking of the fact means in that sentence. So that's also what we mean when it comes to memories as a filter. We filter through decisions, because before any belief that's taken on board, a decision has been made to take that belief on board. We'll also filter through other past decisions that we've made to decide what is our reality and what isn't when it goes through the filters. We filter through our meta programs, and you out there may understand meta programs more if I called them your personality profiles. So there are lots of different meta programs, and if you've done any kind of personality profiling test, you will know how many questions there are that determine the different elements of your personality. It will also get filtered through your values and your beliefs. And your values are the things that are most important to you. And values are held at a very unconscious level. If they become conscious, then it's usually so that you can work on them, or you can also have people around you who kind of have the same or similar values to what you have, and also beliefs as well. The beliefs that you have hang off the values that you have, the things that are most important to you. And you'd be surprised when you elicit your values at an unconscious level, what values are actually most important to you, and actually what values are there that are more at an aspirational level rather than they're taken on unconsciously. And the final thing that it filters through is the attitudes that you have. So if we think, I'm going to go through this very quickly again, every single second of every single moment, you have between 2 million and 11 million bits of information coming in through your 5 senses. It's filtered through time, space, matter, and energy, language, memories, decisions, meta programs, values and beliefs, and your attitudes. And through those filters, it deletes a hell of a lot of information and distorts a lot and generalizes a lot. And what you're left with on this side is only 126 bits of information per second. Now, out of that, you'll remember 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of that information as well. And that information will be there with you as what we call an internal representation. A lot of people call that an internal picture or an internal visualization, when actually, when we talk of an internal representation, it's not just about what you can see. Within that representation, you will also have things that you can hear, feel, smell, taste, and AD there on the end, that's auditory digital, that's your self-talk. Now, because all of this information has come through in that 1 second, filtered through all of these different filters, deleted, distorted, and generalized through them, and our internal representation is only 126 bits of information per second, no 2 people will have the same internal representation. There will be slight nuances. In NLP, we call this our model of the world, or our map of the world. And our model of the world is very different to somebody else's model of the world, even twins. So I know twins, and very often, even if they're identical twins, even if they've been born a couple of minutes apart or a few minutes apart, they will have a different model of the world to the other twin. So say I was a twin, and my twin was born 10 minutes later than me. I've already had 10 minutes more experience in the world than my twin. I will have been held first before my twin. So the connection that I have with the people, the person that's given birth to me and anybody else that's in the room, I'll have a longer connection with those people than the other person, even though it's only 10 minutes. So already my model of the world is very different, even though I'm a tiny baby and I've only just sprung forth into the world. So, and as those twins grow up, that model of the world can also change with the influences that they have around them. I'll go into those influences in another podcast. But for today, I wanted you to understand that this place where we've only got 126 bits of information per second, filtered down through all those filters, that's why We have our own model of the world. That's what we think reality is, when actually, because it's completely different to every other single human on this planet, every single other human on this planet, because it's so different, it's a complete and utter illusion. So what we think is real ain't necessarily real. So let's put it this way to you. If you keep calling yourself ugly, fat, unworthy, too complex, anxious, etc., then this keeps you confined to that negative label. Because as I've just shown in that NLP communication model, those 2 to 11 billion bits of information comes in every single second. So thoughts flow in and flow out. Thoughts flow in, flow out, flow in, flow out, flow in, flow out. So what if you were to change whatever you're labeling yourself that's a negative label? What if you were to tell yourself that you're gorgeous, that you're sexy, that you're inspiring, that you're successful, that you're worth it? You'll feel much better about yourself. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to happen straight away, because as we know, thoughts flow in, thoughts flow out. So 1 minute you'll have this thought, oh, I'm really ugly. And then you say, no, I'm sexy in the next thought. And then the next thought might be, no, I really am ugly. And then the next thought might be, oh, no, I am sexy. Well, once you start connecting with yourself and keep telling yourself you're sexy, you'll start to believe it. And it will change so much. Do it over time. This is a daily practice over weeks, maybe months, to tell yourself that you are absolutely bloody fabulous. Because you see, it's self-prophetic. So if you believe that you're useless, then your internal representation will take on board, will believe your reality is that you're useless. And so the behavior that you show to the world is that you're useless. And so it becomes self-prophetic. However, if you believe in yourself, if you believe you can be successful, if you believe you are successful, then you'll start to live up to that label. You'll start to do the things that create success for you. You'll feel more positive as well, because the internal representation that you get every second is much more positive than if you were telling yourself something negative. So if you believe in yourself, that will show on the outside to everybody else. What I wanted to conclude with today is that I want you to embrace your uniqueness. Every single one of us is completely unique. There is no other you in the world. No one. You may have similar qualities. You may have similar looks. You may have similar personality traits, mannerisms, anything of those things. You may look similar, and yet you are not the same at all. Your model of the world, you are completely unique to somebody else. So stop telling yourself that you're more complex than another person. Stop telling yourself that you're ugly. Stop telling that negative ninny that's inside your head that keeps putting yourself down. Tell it to shut the up, right? Just tell it to shut up. Because if you tell yourself a different story, if you change the story that you're telling yourself, over time, those filters will filter that information every single second differently. So I'd love to know your thoughts about what you think about your own reality, what you think about this whole thing, that there's a lot of people think that they're not normal, and that there is a normal, and that because they're not normal, they're different to everybody else, and that's a real problem for them because they're not different, and because the world's catered to a certain set of people, when actually, yes, There are certain things that are steady, the same, and catered towards the mass of the things that are quite constant between us as humans. And yet, even those humans that we may consider normal, because they live in their own complete and utter illusion. So if you think your reality is that you're completely different to somebody else, yes, you are. So let's start embracing who you are. Start to love yourself. Start to give yourself these positive messages every single day. Start to tell yourself that you love yourself. Start to tell yourself that you're successful. Start to tell yourself that you are amazing, that you're beautiful, that you're sexy, that you're fantastic, that you're a great money magnet, that you are brilliant at what you do, that you're an absolute genius. Tell yourself these things. The messages will then start to influence how that information is filtered, because you'll start to gain new beliefs in yourself. You'll start to change the decisions that you made, that you in the past, that you took on board. Oh, I'm not worth it. To, I am bloody well worth it. I want you to change those messages to yourself so your filters will filter that information that comes in every single second of every single moment, so that it changes the end result every single time. The more you do this, the more things will change. I'll also let you into another secret, though. Have I let you into a secret? Well, the first secret, if I didn't say it was a secret, the first secret is that life's a complete and utter illusion, and everything we thought is a reality is a complete illusion. The second secret is that you're the only one that can change it. You can get help from other people to help you change it. Ultimately, you're the only person that can change it. So if you'd like some help with that, send me a message, DM me, leave a review. I'd love to know your thoughts on what we've discussed today. And this is the end of the first ever podcast. Yay! I'm well excited. So on the next episode will be an interview with someone else. And what I'm going to do is go between doing podcasts on my own and podcasts where I interview people, because I love interviewing people, but I also love imparting my knowledge out there and helping people out there understand themselves and embrace their uniqueness. Lots of love. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Who Are You podcast with me, Deborah Bamford. If you found this podcast interesting, supportive, fun, or you've liked it in some way, please leave me a review, because that's a lovely thing to do. You can find me on Facebook as Debs Bamford, LinkedIn as Deborah Bamford, and Facebook, Insta, and TikTok as Coach Auntie Debs.